Hello, darlings. It's me, Yoko Oso, and welcome to another episode of Oh So, the podcast, where I review a plethora of things that I care about. And I threw my phone over there. And so today we are reviewing Ratatouille the musical, which was a streamed theater experience, and Circle Jerk Live, which was a more live interactive streaming experience. So first, we're going to go into Ratatouille the musical, which, the film Ratatouille itself, the ethos is anyone can cook. And, this whole show kind of takes that concept and runs with it. Anyone can be a drag performer, anyone can make a musical. And it's, very endearing. It's kind of like what, those shows like Hamilton makes them so endearing, minus, Lin-Manuel Miranda coming from a fucking billionaire's, being a billionaire's son. And so Ratatouille the musical was created by this TikToker, Emily Jacobson, who literally posted this super quick TikTok of her making this singing the little theme from the show and like pitching her voice up a little to give it a little more characterization to it. So according to her, she was inspired by the new Ratatouille ride at Epcot, which is not a new ride technically because they are bringing this ride over from Paris Disneyland. Like the first time that anything was successful at Paris Disneyland, they decided, hey, we have to have that in Orlando. And she gives this opening spiel at the beginning of the Ratatouille musical, how she created it and how they're trying to promote different kind of creators in the space, because when we think about it, Broadway is kind of this very closed off kind of space. It's very hard to get an in unless you already have an in, and these are a bunch of little DIY creators making this show. And it actually was a benefit for the Actors Fund, which has raised over $1 million on opening, literally just on opening night. I forget what the final night total is, but I mean, it is what, like, even some of the top grossing Broadway shows, they draw in like a solid $1 million a night. And, according to the playbill I have behind me, the show opened at the Brooks Ratkinson Theater, which is where Six would be playing if there was not a deadly pandemic in the world. So great. And, I'm going to go into different parts of the show. So the music really was based on a bunch of different creators' concepts. So like, the girl Emily started with that one little theme, and like it's so crazy. Like all of TikTok just saw this like little thing and just ran with it. Like they made like these little themes, like a theme for a meal, a theme for Remy's dad, all these different little like themes, and it's so interesting to see how this came together so well. And a show so that's based on a similar conceit, SpongeBob SquarePants the musical, is like done so differently because of with SpongeBob, it's these big, what they went with like big pop singers, and they have their own way of singing, of writing songs and singing, and there's a bit of like a lack of cohesion with SpongeBob because there's no real leitmotif like how Les Mis has motifs, and because it's all different creators. But with Ratatouille, they managed to take that one singular theme that was sung by Emily and just transform it into this like little like a whole score basically, because there's little incidental music, and then there's these themes that reoccurred throughout the show, that really ties in the narrative so cleanly. And it is also basically an IP musical, an intellectual property musical, and a lot of the performances this whole show was actually performed by with an orchestra called the Broadway Sinfonietta, which is a whole collective of musicians that are mostly women of color. Which, as someone that's worked in an orchestra pit, the orchestra, even like performing in the orchestra in these shows, there's still a lack of diversity and inclusion, whatever that means nowadays, because it's the visibility, I guess it would be. But it is still very important, to see these kind of people represented in this way, under the stage, behind the stage, near the stage. And so let's go into the performance of the show. First, we have Kevin Chamberlain as Chef Gusto. And the characterization, I mean, getting into the ethos of the show, there's a sentiment that, like, you can have a book and put it next to mine. It's so lovely. It's such a lovely point about, getting to set aside your ego, hint, hint for how the show goes, as a creator, to set aside your ego to make room for the next generation of people who are going to outlive you, in a sense, because at a certain point it's revealed that Chef Gusto has died. I know there's like no real spoilers for this, by the way. It's like, if you've seen Ratatouille the movie, which has been out for a while, then you'll mostly know the general gist of Ratatouille the musical. But yeah, there is kind of a point they get to about, like, gatekeeping, and as for a lot of young creators, there's a tendency to be a bit gatekeepy about things, and the staging of it in some way felt a bit odd to me. There's like this looking to the side, avoiding the camera, because these are stage actors. A lot of them are stage actors, or some of them are TV and film actors. For some reason, the TikTok way of acting doesn't feel like, it's like a new realm, and it's kind of going to be like the inevitability of our future when it comes to live performing. I mean, I'm titling this episode, the one about the future of live theater. And, for the foreseeable future, I've debated getting tickets to see shows when they come down here, even though in Florida that's like a bad idea, to go sit in a theater even in fall. I'm not sure how these things are going to go with our vaccine rollout and everything that's happening in the world. But the way we have to approach theater now, in this, like, kind of not quite new but sort of new realm of the live stream, of the speaking directly to the camera, is kind of going to be something that these actors have to really take into account. You've got these newer, younger actors, like the actor that plays Linguini, Andrew Barth Feldman, who is much younger and has probably lived more of his life behind the screen than, say, an actor like Andre de Shields as Anton Ego. But Andrew de Shields does a fantastic job for this setup. And I think that while I did love Titus as Remy, because I just love anything Titus does, and he was a very natural choice for this, by the way, and he really amps up Patton Oswalt's isms in this to translate it from the film to the stage version. And he's because he's a talented singer, but at the same time, I think that with him, he's very, like, acting to the side, like looking away from the camera and avoiding the gaze of, directly into the camera, like as one would act when you're in a live stream like this kind of setup right now, where I'm very much talking to a camera in my room. And who else was in it? Oh, Wayne Brady. Wayne Brady really committed to this role. Like, he even had a little bit of the rat makeup that I have here underneath my regular shellac. Ashley Park as Colette. Ashley Park as Colette is like a conundrum. It's like the Ouroboros of, like, French accents, because I know she, like, filmed a whole year or so, or however many months, to film Emily in Paris. I genuinely cannot tell if, because of it's so unintelligible, that if it's a good French accent or a bad French accent. It's truly Schrodinger's French accent. Um, and I mean, according to her Instagram, they said that they only had about like 24 hours to learn the entire show, which is no short order, but still, it's like Golden Globe nominee Ashley Park learning this show is kind of bewildering. And so, as I mentioned before, Andrew Barth Feldman is playing Linguini, and so he was one of the last Evan Hansons in the Broadway production of Dear Evan Hansen. He actually took it right before Jordan Fisher took over in like February, which now that Jordan Fisher's tenure is kind of over, whenever the show eventually does open on Broadway, it's still very up in the air. But I think that he could really, he should take on that role again. I don't think he had nearly that much time. I mean, Jordan Fisher had a very short run on it, considering that it was only a few weeks in February before the whole world shut down. But I think that Andrew Beth Feldman, as like because he actually is 18 years old. Like it's so crazy to me because he actually, they actually cast someone that's 18 this time, unlike the movie Dear Evan Hansen, where they're casting a 30-year-old Mark Platt, who they're gonna say, yeah, that's a teenager. That's what a high schooler looks like. But he's just a wee bebe. And he does the whole awkward thing in the Ratatouille musical like very well. Also, he's just joined the cast of High School Musical, the musical, the series. So, I can't wait to see what song he writes about Sabrina Carpenter. Have any of you read that? It's the most tepid drama, but it's like I'm so glad the indie girls are bringing back the bitch track. It's truly been lost on us since like Holla Bat Girl, which was written about Gwen Stefani writing about Courtney Love calling her a cheerleader. The indie girls need to bring back the bitch track in this day and age. And one of my favorites. So I mentioned how this show was filmed at the Brooks Ratkinson, and actually a lot of the ensemble was the cast of Six. There's the main six queens, and then their understudies. And it really makes me wish that I was in a theater, not worrying about viruses, because it's so. Six is such a good show. I've watched the preview versions that they filmed for slime tutorials online, and it really makes me wish I could see it because it's such a versatile show. But it really it's very well done. I would love to be seeing it right now. And in the show, in the Ratatouille, they play the Rat Queens, who are just this little ensemble of rats that go during the raid of Gusto's kitchen. And another performer, Broadway alum, who's in the show is Talia Suskauer, who plays a journalist. I forget what the name was, but I know it's like something Germanotta. A little wink to Lady Gaga. And Talia Suskauer is a Elphaba on the tour cast of Wicked. And, around this time 3 years ago, Super Bowl weekend, my friend took me to see Wicked. I was like, you know what? You're the only person I know who'd be free to see Wicked on a Super Bowl weekend. And, I've seen her videos. I haven't seen her yet perform. I'm hoping. I think that they just either canceled or postponed the Wicked tour again naturally. So I hope to see her this fall, maybe. Then one of the other main characters who comes in like at the second act of the show, Andre de Shields is Anton Ego. He's fresh off his run in Hadestown. I don't know if he still is. I really, really hope he comes back to Hadestown, because that's the thing is like with a lot of these actors, their runs in the show were never finalized unless the show is closed right now. Like Mean Girls has finished its run. Beetlejuice finished its run. But Hadestown it's touring allegedly this fall, and it's also going to come back to Broadway at some point. Will these big Broadway actors like Andre de Shields, Reeve Carney, Ava Noblezada come back to the show now? They could use the income eventually, but it's like, would they? Now, this show was directed by Jeremy O. Harris of I have it right in front of me, of Slave Play, which I'm still working my way through this book, may review this at a later date. But this show is nominated for a whopping 12 Tonys. Oh, Vault, and it's also co-produced by Michael Breslin and Patrick Foley, who even they themselves make a cameo. I'm going to talk a bit more about them in Circle Jerk Live, but yeah, they co-produced this, and they co-wrote the book for the show. And it's so crazy because Jeremy O. Harris is like kind of the main reason how Circle Jerk got this like little bit of crossover appeals because um, Jeremy O. Harris was a financier and really promoted the hell out of Circle Jerk Live, really bringing it to a bigger audience. And I think when they wrote the way they translated the book of, or I guess it would be book, the script of Ratatouille the movie into the book of Ratatouille the musical, I think it has the right level of like political satire and cringe that's like palatable for these audiences. I mean, it's Broadway. Circle Jerk Live, which we'll get into in the next one, is like that is a whole amalgam of like political hot takes, whereas this one is a little more like it's Trump jokes. There's Mary Testa as Skinner, wondering why Remy. Or no, how Gusteau has the son in Linguini and saying like collusion. Um, it's those kind of Trump jokes. It's very very light on them, and thankfully it's like not a crazy amount of them because I mean we're out of the Trump presidency now, and is it gotten better? I don't know yet. And then there's also like these little like theater in references like journalist 24601, a little Les Mis nod, and I think that Pixar itself is very predicated on the visual storytelling and the visual narrative. There's a reason why they do those little silent short films, and why some of the most really endearing Pixar films and Pixar sequences even are just like no words whatsoever. But I think with here, it is a musical. It has really never been a Pixar musical, so it's like you really have to translate the storytelling of like the visual form to like this digital actorly kind of way where you have to emote larger, you have to express, you literally have to narrate. Like there has to be a narrative in it. And the narrative is very expository. There's a lot of exposition um from Titus as Remy, basically drawing the story along. And also as a producer, Lucy Moss of Six. Lucy Moss also co-produced Six as well. And there's a little bit of those in jokes, from Six. I mean, they have on top of having the Queens there at the end, like in the bows exit music, there's like a little nod that says TikTok, here we go. Instead of the Broadway, here we go, London, here we go, that they do at the end of the Mega Six, which one day I would love to see in person. For now, I'm just gonna watch it on my iPad. Another thing is like the scenic design of the show. This is filmed socially distancedly in everyone's individual setup. So like, they're either in front of a green screen or like a blank wall in their house. Very clearly. Some of it, I mean, the Broadway Sinfonietta had to record like at least the wind musicians in a studio, but there's like percussionists and like bass players and like their own little studio setup. But yeah, there's like they have their own little setups, and I think specifically Titus Burgess is either in front of a green screen, and I think that some people were in response to the Ratatouille the musical, they've made these like these really impressive like puppets, these like almost like Lion King-esque puppets with like PVC pipes and like their own little costuming, and they've built these like really intricate set designs out of like shoe boxes. And like with this one, it's like the green screen format is kind of like a little bit of a letdown, only because as a graphic designer, by not by choice but by living, kind of makes you want more out of the set design, because you see it and it's like this is a stock image of Paris. This is it's very I want more. Give me more. As Britney Spears says, free Britney. Hashtag free Britney. Um, yeah, it just kind of left me wanting more though. I mean, and there's also some choice in the editing, where in a Broadway show it would be like, the performers would like be panting and like free frozen in frame doing one of these and like panting because they just got out of a big dance number. And it's like, I feel like I know in a show that's usually to allow for set changes and for applause and to, really let the gravity of the scene kind of go in. But I think that when they translate it to the digital form, it just feels like it's like Adam Lambert stopped making really awkward eye contact at me and panting. Um, it's just really, it kind of feels awkward and I get it, but I think that as, more, oh God, as more of these shows go along, that it's going to be something that like really, reads or translates differently. And, for my final thoughts, that I think that Ratatouille the musical is just so cute, and it feels like it's an actual, like, almost like a pitch for, if this is a pitch for a real musical, that I hope whatever funds Disney Broadway Ventures has cut, unfortunately, from Broadway, Frozen on Broadway. I hope they make this a reality. I would love to see it. It's such a visual show that I can see these like large, like intricate set designs and these costumes and all this coming really to life. And a Broadway show is nothing to battle lash at for an investment. But I really hope that they do make this a reality. That's life.